The risk you are looking at, is it proportionate to the measures that you are taking in this regard?
How much do you know of your right to freedom of privacy? Well, in as much as you have freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom of expression, and all freedoms as enshrined in the Nigerian Constitution, you also have right to privacy, likewise other people. In fact, know this, where your right to all these stuffs is exactly where other people's own starts. Now, recently, the Socioeconomic Right and Accountability Project, SERAP, launched this report or presented this report titled No Place for Dissent, No Privacy. It's actually a data and digital right protection report, and we encourage you to try as much as you can to have this report. In fact, if you need it, you can contact Bottom Line TV and we'll make it available to you. It's free of charge from SERAP.
Because, Dr. Afino, we talked about a section of the Constitution that gives government the right to actually monitor you, surveillance without a court order. Are you able to say to government, and I'd like you to be as honest as possible, that, well, the place of proportionality, the risk you are looking at, is it proportionate to the measures that you are taking in this regard? If, for instance, there is a risk that something wants to go off in Ikeja, I'm sure you would imagine that government should take every possible measure to prevent anything that will lead to the loss of life. So national security should not be discussed in abstract, as if national security is about an individual. National security in most cases is about security of lives and property. So people are interested. What measures are you taking? Where we come in is that there are principles already under the Act, Section 24. For instance, talks about the principles. Is it fair? Measures you are using, is it fair? Is it lawful? Is it legitimate? Data you are collecting, it should be minimal. It should be relevant to what you want to do, and so on and so forth.
But the challenge is that if you focus on solving a problem and create another problem while solving that problem, which is trampling on the rights of citizens, then you wouldn't have solved the problem successfully. In fact, you will lose the interest of the citizens you claim you are trying to protect. And then, the question to us was, are you friends with terrorists? And we said, no, we're not friends with terrorists, but we just believe that regulation should be about creating standards so that everyone can benefit. Fast forward, many years later, we all know what the story changed, and it became the person who then released a press statement to say, respect my rights. I'm sure he reached out to, to the National Human Rights Commission and other people. And then we joked in the office and said, oh, we need to sue this man for plagiarism, because this is what we used to say, and he's saying exactly the same thing. And so the reason we do our work focus on digital rights. Eventually, this case went to court. We sued the government. A judge called us busybodies and said, "What is our business?" Thankfully, just last week in Uyo, we were talking to judges, we were training judges of the Federal High Court, and I think we now all understand why. Because even judges, courts had been surveilled. So now we're all in it together. And I think this is why it's important to do this work, to make sure that your data is protected. Kola Wallace, I think it was you actually, or I don't remember who said earlier something about privacy in the restroom. And this is what we say to people, that the reason why human beings require privacy is because it is a fundamental requirement.
There was Dr. Afinowi that says laws are essentially used as weapons of oppression in this part of the world, and it ought not to be. And I'll come to Kate, because you're a celebrity and people take you for granted. You don't have any right to privacy, right? You have acted, you have shown us yourself. So we need to know everything about you, and I imagine people stalk you a lot. So what is DDR to you, really? I know you had to fight a lot of trolls, you've had to do that, but what does it mean to you as a public figure?
I am one person who always advocates for people not to put any of their personal stuff out there. Let it be about your work. Because before you know it, it's going to go from, because once you put it out there, you have given them access. You have, whether you like it or not, you have invited them into your home. You have opened the door and said, hey, come in and take what you want, do what you want with it. So for me, it is a personal boundary and protection of my space, of me not releasing things that I don't want people to know. And I do have that right to keep some of me to myself. That is why the word privacy exists. Private and then public. They're two different words. So, but people blur the lines in trying to explain themselves, in trying to show off, in trying to be politically correct. They blur the lines, and that is something that should be totally separate.
Well, we can still follow you on social media, right? I still like your pictures. Let me come to Mr. Bamigwe, because the work you do is very vital. And if there's anything SERAP has tried to show to the world, is that it is not us versus government. Okay, we're meant to work together, and that is the essence of this conversation. So we are all in this together, and it's quite interesting that Dr. Afinowi said it's not just government that actually breaches these rights. You have person to person. I didn't see that coming actually, so in any case, you're not alone in this. But tell us the work you do. How is it vital to enforcing these rights? Because they're equally as important as our fundamental rights to freedom, to life, and the rest, not minding that it's on the digital space. So the work you do, how does it make our rights enforced? Not forgetting that you're actually a part of a government that is always blamed as the #1 violator.
If we actually look at this, you realize that government seems to be the least of the abusers, if at all. It's arguable.
It's debatable.
It's debatable. But in other words, look at the statistics we received about citizens to citizen violation. Governments could be interested in who wants to attack whom. A government official may be interested in just one individual who wants to expose. But the big tech is interested in everybody altogether. So we are in the space, not only about how government goes about its business in collection of data, but also how citizens relate with citizens on data, the collection or processing of personal data. And it is not something that we should hide. The Nigeria Data Protection Act is reputed to be one of the most progressive. In fact, without mincing words, this was stated to us by the Canadian Data Protection Authority that it is perhaps the most progressive in the world. Why? Because even the European General Data Protection Regulation recognizes that some things are out of protection, as it were, because maybe somehow they are protected by other laws. But under our laws, we made sure that everything in Nigeria, whether BU security agency or what have you could be controlled under the Act. And thankfully today, The Office of the National Security Advisor, they are talking about surveillance and all that, using of CCTV. They brought us in for guidance. How do we go about this? So the conversation is really changing.
You can make laws, but the enforcement of the law is one thing. So I want us to look at it this way. The regulation of the cyberspace, yes, of course, we cannot leave it fallow like that. The individual privacies are there. People capitalize on that. Once you let that information go to retrieve it, the damage would have been done. Even if you offer public apology, not everybody will hear that apology. Now, when this GSM regulation came up, there were no restrictions. People just go to the market, buy a GSM number, buy the handset, activate it, off you go. One person will be having 20 lights, 30 lights. You call him with this number and remove the SIM card. Send you one dirty message with this one and remove the SIM card and throw it away. You never see it again. In order to avoid repeating the same mistake, yes, I can say we will need some form of legislation. But I want us to find a midway between the legislation and our will to do the right thing. Just like this example I gave, that there are countries that have unwritten constitution, yet they don't have problems. We have written constitution, we have a lot of sections and subsections and whatever, but we continue having problems. The challenges we're having in this country is because we don't have laws. We have laws. My ancestral agenda for all of us, particularly SERAP, to explore and see how we can have a midway out of it.
Because if the politician had known that that was going to be his savior, probably he wouldn't have been the person trying to push for restriction of cyberspace. So I'm looking at that. So probably what SERAP and all of us here should do is, can we get positive messages of how protection of the digital rights and data can be of benefit to all, so that it's not a matter of government against the people, or legislators against the people, or executive against the people. Because in that way, we are going to have a lot of pushbacks. Let it be a whole of a national approach, so that we can all see the benefit we'll all derive from it. Because at the end of the day, everybody benefits really.
So opinions on the need of regulation of the digital space and data use in Nigeria. Most of our participants agreed that there is a need for regulation. We can't just allow it to be an ungoverned space. So there must be regulation. Now, opinions on clampdown and censorship. Again, most people said, yes, there's a need for regulation, but we say no to clamp down. Okay? So the government has a lot on their hands. That means they must be able to find the middle balance or the midpoint between regulating that space and ensuring that there are no repressions within that space. That was an analysis of our field survey. So what are the recommendations? Haven't gone through all of this. We've looked at the challenges, we've looked at the pros, we've looked at the issues of violation, and so on and so forth. Now I must state here that our survey found out that these violations occur across the board. So we have cases of citizen to citizen, we have cases of government to citizen, we have cases of citizens to government, and we have cases of corporate entities or business entities to citizens. So we're not laying the blame at anybody's feet, because there is no one at fault. It's a general problem which needs to be addressed, and that's why we haven't pulled out. There are an array, but that's why we haven't pulled out specific cases of such violations. Yeah.
Because of the advent and growth of data and digital rights and issues associated with these rights become much more important. Also within the context of our democracy and the experience that we've had over the years, we've seen that the issue of the promotion or infringement, you can call it that, of human rights of Nigerians have now shifted to online, which in recent times you would recall, for instance, an agency of the Nigerian government that describes social media as a monster, and then there is a bill again to regulate social media, whatever that means. And that means that it's very important at this point that we need to discuss the aspect of the human rights of Nigerians from the data and digital rights perspective.
Well, data rights are very, very important. Data rights and data protection are very, very important. Like I said, the digital world has made it possible to invade our innermost privacy. And if there was need for privacy protected by the Constitution, that means unless somebody allows you into his privacy or her privacy, you cannot really enter there.
So it's important that we talk about data and digital rights because for many people, they don't even realize, I mean, as we noted in the report, that their rights as a physical person extend to the digital space. And that's why you find out that a lot of violations and incursions have been going on unchecked, unhindered. So it's necessary that we have these conversations. Also from the reports you have heard, that many people are not aware of the laws, the relevant laws in this area. So it's necessary we carry out this kind of advocacy. And I must say that it's just the beginning, of the conversation. It's like, starting the conversation. Much more will follow after this.
On behalf of the entire management and staff of the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, popularly known as the SERAP on Twitter. We see you people, you call us SERAP, Swara, Suraju, Suya. We hear all those things. I'd like to say a very big thank you to each and every one of us for your presence, participation. Thank you very much. This event has been a proof of our collective commitment to ensuring the protection of our human rights and the promotion of transparency and accountability.